Shinobi Non Grata appears to be a perfect fit for my personal gaming taste, a retro action platformer with a clear love for Ninja Gaiden, a personal favourite of mine, and in fact, I'd consider the NES game to be in my top 10 games of all time. Now, my name's Alex, this is SwitchCorner, and the big question today is, can this deliver something comparable? And that is what I'm here to find out. Now, if you do enjoy this video today, consider subscribing, helps me out a huge amount, and we're going to be kicking things off with story. So it's 1838, the 9th year of the Tenpō era, a time of turmoil for Japan. A leader has stupidly formed an alliance with demons, all in the hopes of overthrowing the current government and taking control. Your goal: stand before them and stop them before it is too late. I never come to a retro game with a story at the forefront of my expectations, but I did enjoy this. It has the occasional cutscene between levels, and it feels in keeping with its retro stylings. Gameplay then under this, it's very much an action platformer designed to punish you. The game is split into 5 chapters and each contains multiple levels and boss encounters. In fact, if Shinobi Non Grata is generous in any way, it is the bosses. There is a huge amount of them, and it's really where the developers flex their creativity the most. It features everything from constant attacks that must be avoided to heavy ones that require a particular strategy to overcome. I would argue the ordering at times feels a little bit off, with difficulty spikes all over the place, but they are fun to figure out, but do go into this game with some patience. What did surprise me, however, is its commitment to the old school. There are no multiple lives here, and you can take 5 hits, and that is it then, you are dead. Now, fortunately, the game does at least feature unlimited continues, but it did surprise me when it would throw you all the way back to the beginning of the entire level, and not just the boss you were facing. That may not be for everyone, and it can admittedly become a little frustrating when you face an enemy that seems to constantly get the better of you. Fortunately, however, levels are extremely short. Most of them you can run through within a couple of minutes, as the design appears to be more focused on overwhelming you as quickly as possible, rather than, I guess, presenting you any particular long-running challenges. So this to me is a positive and a negative. On the good side, there's this instant kind of gratification of blasting through a level and taking down a huge number of enemies, but I do think a few more complex designs would have benefited the experience. You know, later in the game, chapter 4, you cross a level with obstacles that take some strategy and patience, the spikes above and below you, and it was a highlight as it really asked me to kind of test my platforming chops, much like Ninja Gaiden did back in the day. Where Shinobi Non Grata shines, however, is its combat and special ability controls. The movement is fast as well, it's incredibly responsive, and it also adds a few modern twists. First, you have the usual, movement, jump, double jump, and a single attack. You can even maneuver mid-air, which I really like, but then you can also target your attacks in 8 directions, so think up, down, left, right, and diagonal, and you can also dodge roll, a feature I didn't expect, but it will be essential. It also provides invincibility frames for what I would say is about 90% of incoming attacks. This is a great addition, but it did annoy me when you couldn't use it against the occasional attack type or enemy type, so you must basically learn the hard way by taking damage, and when a game is unforgiving, that is annoying, so I'd rather they just kind of committed to it 100%. Outside of the core skill set then, in the upper left you will see a meter below your health bar. This is a special move meter. Now across the top of the screen then you will see a selection of 6 different weapons, and these are of varying patterns and powers. These are going to be incredibly important with boss encounters, and they include attacks such as electrocution, shotguns, those with a widespread formation, and even those that destroy everything on screen at once. This meter of course drains, but killing enemies will replenish it. You can also find crates in the world that contain this energy as well, but you may also find in these crates a few special items, such as ones that temporarily multiply you for a multi-attack pattern, and also health pickups. I do finally then want to address the difficulty that I mentioned earlier, and that's what I feel this game is missing. It's not a particularly easy game, but thanks to a more robust control scheme, it is considerably easier than its influences. There will be moments when you do get stuck, and there's no question going to be frustration, so if you do frustrate easily, do not come here. But it's definitely not up there with the likes of Ninja Gaiden that have been known to break a few controllers in their time. Now, if you do get good at the game, I've seen runs online that can beat the game in around 45 minutes. For me, it was more like 3.5 hours, so that should tell you the number of deaths I faced. To round out gameplay then, let's talk about what I wish this game had, and I do wish it had more endgame content, more customization if anything. There's really no difficulty options in here, there's just the one mode, and once you are done, unless you really want to kind of challenge yourself to chase that perfect run, there's not going to be a huge amount else for you. I think options such as how many continues we get, or maybe the size of your health bar, that could have gone a long way to extending this experience. Visually then, I am a fan of good old NES values, and that's really what we're getting here, though I'd say some of the visual effects, the character models, they do maybe push beyond it just slightly. Throughout the experience, there's nearly always something going on though, enemies jumping on screen, flashy incoming attacks, some of the bosses themselves fill the screen as well, which is always going to be a win for me, and the game just runs effortlessly. There wasn't a single frame rate drop in my time. I particularly then like the color palette they implemented. Each of the 5 chapters also presents a different location, which changes things up, and it can be overall just an incredibly vivid game. It's also hitting many classic ideas, stages where you auto run, there's moments where you jump across rooftops, and there's an area where you're in freefall attacking on the way down, which I really liked even if it was extremely simplistic. I think the best way to describe it is, there's nothing that screams originality here, but if you like the influences behind the game, you're gonna like this. It knows the audience it's targeting, and I can't question it for that. Audio finally, we get a chiptune soundtrack, and it's decent. It reinforces the action on screen, and thematically, it does change as the action and story progresses. I wouldn't say there's anything too memorable in here. I haven't walked away thinking I need to listen to this offline. If anything, I just kind of want to go and listen to the original Ninja Gaiden soundtrack now, but I think it does enough. Where the game does win, however, on the audio front is the sound effects. It may be minimal, but for me, it screams nostalgia with its attack and special ability attached effects. They just sound satisfying, and they immediately kind of reinforce what you just achieved. Overall, Shinobi Non Grata was a game I was hopeful for, and I think for those like me that enjoy the era, it's going to be worth your time. Adds a few nice modern additions that make it feel, just a little unique, and it moves it beyond simply being a clone of retro games you've played before. I do think, however, the game is lacking from a longevity perspective. It's easier than its influences, though you will still die a lot, and once I was done, I just don't have a huge amount of motivation now to go ahead and jump back in. A few difficulty options or customizable features, like I said, would have made this an entirely different story. I also then have to question some of its design ideas. There's some noticeable difficulty spikes where the ordering of bosses just feels a little bit off, and occasionally you may face a cheap moment or two. I had fun overall though, there's no question about that, so it's a good 7 out of 10 from me today. Watching this video, you already know if it's going to be for you. It's not here to win new audiences, and that is just fine, honestly. Some games need to set out with this intention, and I think they kind of checked all the boxes I would have expected. So with that, will you be checking this one out? So let me know in the comments. Then hit subscribe, join us here for reviews, deals, news and lists daily, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.